I was the math guy. Numbers were simple, fun to work with, and most importantly, absolute. Their value never changed. 3 could be forever relied upon to remain 3, and I had no real interest in eccentric family members kept in Victorian attics or the role of reindeer in the Winter War. But then it happened. I struggled to articulate the uncomfortable shift I felt going on inside. I remember trying to describe the feeling I had from making leaps and bounds each day, each minute in history class, and while I could still do the work in math, that exhilaration was missing. Over time, I recognized that I no longer needed the consistency or perfection that only math can offer. In math, absolutes rule the day. Rules are unbreakable, and methods repeatable. But the real world is not a math problem. There is no uniform measurable value of independence or civic responsibility, nor is there a formula to solve world hunger, nor a proof to discuss recurrent themes in great literature. Real issues do not exist in a world of absolutes, but in a world of competing options. Neither option is perfect, and none completely wrong. As a bright-eyed freshman in my second quarter at Stanford, I took what remains my favorite collegiate course, Thinking the American Revolution, taught by none other than Professor Kappa. I almost missed the opportunity. Without his explicit encouragement based on my time in the previous lecture course he described, I likely would not have had the confidence to take an upper-level history course so early in my undergraduate career. But that encouragement was life-altering. The pandemic kept me from campus, so I responded by engrossing myself in the remarkable pamphlet wars of the Anglo-American imperial crisis. I spent months poring over the arguments which led to the American Revolution, eventually being able to predict with remarkable success how various interlocutors would respond to the piece I was then reading. From the famous pens of Paine and Jefferson, to the now more obscure exhortations of James Otis or John Dickinson, I delighted as the past's politicians blended history, philosophy, religion, and hundreds of references in a debate with nearly unimaginable stakes. I watched in awe as a years-long contest of ideas as occasionally dry and hyper-specific as precise distinctions in taxation led to the dismemberment of the world's most powerful empire and the creation of the American Republic. I was similarly wonderstruck as I watched those colossal ramifications torture the men responsible for them. As early as 1768, James Wilson concluded that sovereignty could not be divided. He believed, along with the British, that the colonies were either part of the empire and subject to its power absolutely or entirely independent. The only options were complete submission or war. Wilson was so horrified by his own conclusion that he hid it in a drawer for 6 years. When he finally published the pamphlet in 1774, it was a definitive argument to reshape the world. It is no exaggeration to say that I spent more time in the 18th century during that winter than the 21st, and I could not have been happier. The past and the present are not quite so separate, however. All this time I spent in the past has delivered me an enormous appreciation for just how precarious the advances of the last 2 centuries are. While we are less precariously perched than we were in 1775 or 1787, there are shadows on the horizon. Self-government, human rights, and opportunity for those without what is considered proper birth are still just blips on a timeline dominated by their opposites. In the United States, challenges to these values will find their way to the courts, and as a proud member of the Stanford Law School class of 2027, I plan to be in those courtrooms. And while I may have drifted away from STEM classes, I've not abandoned those still passionate in pursuing them. You will find me standing on the sidelines, marveling at your accomplishments, and cheering wildly for the things you discover and do. My fellow Phi Beta Kappa inductees' interest may be divided in the course catalog, and our class is separated for the purpose of breadth requirements, but this only works if we remain supportive and united in our efforts. We, the scientists, analysts, writers, linguists, ethicists, artists, philosophers, historians, and yes, even the lawyers, must stand together as we pursue our passions and navigate the moral and ethical implications of all of our breakthroughs. So, Phi Beta Kappa class of 2024, let's go make some history.